Chapter 1 Mother's Cherished Homeland. Before sending me to my end, Mom had a conversation with her, saying that Mom couldn't handle my defiance and rebelliousness and that we were constantly fighting. My aunt suggested Mom send me over and confidently believed that she would be able to deal with my tough cookiness. So the plan to send me there permanently was devised all behind my back. Had Mother mentioned the nearest word that would relate to permanence, I would not have set foot on that plane, and Mother knew that fact very well. After she successfully sent me abroad, she was left with a beautiful 2-story house and was overcome with loneliness. No daughter to quarrel with this time. Mom was officially out of her job after she moved from Tel Aviv to live with me. Now that I was out of the country, she was not getting father's alimony. Her only source of income was unemployment. She finally understood and accepted the rascality of Volodya, confessing to me 12 years after the fact and apologizing for causing me havoc. In her loneliness, Mom called Grandpa and said to him that she wanted to go to the United States too. Grandpa sympathetically explained to Mom that my aunt had a full load having to take care of me and Grandma, and that she should consider instead leaving back to the Ukraine. In the 2 months of my absence, Mom was seriously deliberating the option. She felt that a certain wave was pushing her out of the country, and nostalgia was crawling up to her memory, gently wooing her towards that decision. Mom hadn't seen Ukraine for 12 years. She remembered that she had Jack there, who she heard was divorced, and maybe it was worth the try. She wistfully reminisced of places of her childhood like Cherished, of the magnificent aura of the central street of Kiev and the glistening cobblestone streets. Before making a final decision, she stayed at our house and enjoyed the company of my friends who visited her on a regular basis, as Tanya was the captain of the whole batch. Together they baked kebabs. Mom molded her sculptures out of clay, and Tanya would majestically color them. Tanya had a drawing skill like me. She and I would get private lessons from another drawing teacher whose name was Sveta. I really cherished those times. After Mom and Tanya created a collection of artwork, Sveta would come and check it out and be marveled at the sight. Mom treated my friends like her own kids, as she attested to me that their parents had forgotten about them. Eventually, the summer vacation was over and Tanya had to go to the school that I was supposed to go to with her. And Tanya's friends visited Mom more rarely to not at all, at which point Mom stayed alone again. As Mom narrated that alone problem to me, I asked her as to why she wanted to get rid of me, and she said it was because we were constantly fighting. So I further asked her to why she didn't let me live with Dad and herself leave to Ukraine. Mom said it was because my dad is a bum and Mom didn't believe I had a prospective future with him. She explained that she knew that I was smart, that I would have no problem learning the English language and assimilating into its ways. I only asked Mom's rationalization about the circumstance she put me in and her choices 12 years after the fact, which I wonder why. At the beginning, I resolutely convinced myself that Mom had her own selfish agenda, and it was very hard to forgive her. But as I grew more mature, I gave up the circumstances, my difficulties, and my sense of loss to the Lord. Who knows how events would have unfolded if Mom had made different decisions about me. Nonetheless, what I still find irritating in Mom as she speaks about it is her lack of understanding or acknowledging my rightful unwillingness to make such a drastic move and her wrongdoing in deceiving me. "Oh, what a bad mother I am. I sent my child to America," she would sarcastically proclaim, as if because America is a prosperous country, it justifies her doing regarding me. "Any child in your place would have dreamt of that," she continued. I beg to differ. Not to live with ultra-religious relatives that she got kicked out of herself. She tore me out of my roots, my memories upon which my existence and sense of identity was tightly hinged on. Israel is the same to you as to what I felt about Ukraine at the time, your childhood homeland, she would say, dismissing my feelings about it. The only fact that she undermined was that her moving to places was based on her conscious and fully willing decisions. I was deprived of that, as I had to make many sacrifices against my will, and that is what made me uncomfortable about Mom's frivolous attitude towards my destiny. If I was old enough to pass the border on my own, I should have been old enough to make my own willing decision to make a permanent change of address as well. I just don't understand why Mom fails to sympathize, especially sympathize with all the hardships that I've gone through thanks to her side of the family. Finally, she made the decision to officially move out to Ukraine. Unhesitatingly and very much impulsively, Mom did not sell the house, but she charitably gave it away and everything inside of it for free. The furniture, the dishes, the laundromat, everything that, in her opinion, she didn't want to waste any time trying to sell. She did, however, get money for the house that she originally bought that was not built well and was falling apart, which was $40,000 that she gave away to her sister, who now built a 3-story mansion. Why in the world Mom would even think to invest in her daughter, I wonder. Now my aunt refuses to pay the debt she owes to Mom. Besides that fact, my Lefaim destroyed that house and built a hotel. Needless to say, on that while, Mom was successful in making the working visa for Ukraine and Israel. She set her heart on redeveloping a relationship with Jack and recreating a support system with her former friends. Interestingly enough, if it were me, I would have had some kind of second guesses, discomforts about leaving everything behind, or even fears. Not Mom. She beamed with the ultimate bravery. After everything was said, Mom got a taxi, and without a soul to accompany her, and without turning back, she took her luggage and set out to the airport of Ben Gurion in Tel Aviv. There she passed the control checkpoints and arrived in Kyiv in 4 hours. The flight was swift and easy, which was nothing like 11 hours of torturous flight and sweaty naked palms full of important documents. Mom's dreamlike expectation of Kyiv quickly filled with disappointment by the dilapidated and unkempt look of the airport in comparison to Israel or even the United States. First, Mom was under the impression that she was returning to her beloved homeland, but it didn't even smell welcoming or nearly as hospitable. In order to not feel grim, she tried not to pay attention to these dark sightings, and she came to Grandpa and his wife, house. Masha offered Mom a cozy room, and beside it were chickens and rooster. Unfortunately, Mom was bumped against the reality that Grandpa slightly over-embellished the conditions and the appearance of the house. At the beginning, Mom liked everything about the house, and waking up to the crows of the roosters. The only person outside the family who called in concern was Grandma Runya to make sure that Mom had arrived safely. What further disheartened Mom was that there was nothing in the house that appeared familiar from childhood. Mom, what did you expect? Grandpa to have something from the former house that he left for Grandma? I asked her in an attempt to shake her back to reality. Well, I expected that he should have had something, Mom sheepishly answered. Mom, I think you forgot the kind of authority that Grandma likes to display. I rooted her back to the ground. Everything was dull and in a Christian-like setting. Mom continued to complain. The longer Mom remained in Grandpa's household, the more scandals Masha had started to raise. Mom tried to assure Masha that she was not going to depend on them very much longer, but Masha was not quite satisfied. In response, Mom tried to not pay attention and instead she set her beating heart towards her meeting with Jack. At last, the meeting took place in the neighborhood where she was raised, Darnitsa. With him, Mom strolled through her dream and effervescent street called Krishatik, and Jack showed Mom new stores. The few things that Mom was impressed by were the new variety of products that were there after the collapse of communistic regimes. However, when Jack brought Mom to his house, Mom looked around his house with major sunken spirits because nothing in his house had changed throughout the period of time that they hadn't seen each other, which displayed to her Jack's unmotivated stagnancy of life. In 12 years, Mom had managed to change so many cities, houses, and even boyfriends, and he didn't even update his TV. Mom hid her sense of disgruntlement and waited until he invited Mom's childhood friends. Mom couldn't quite recognize them when they came, and they felt like complete strangers. Mom didn't understand the dogged insistence on talking in Ukrainian when in what language to talk should have been the least of their concerns in that poor-stricken country. After the collapse of the Soviet Union, Ukraine became a very nationalistic country. Even though the majority knew Russian, they avoided speaking it. Mom knew Ukrainian, but the topics that they talked about were far-fetched from her, especially the politics. Mom understood that she was forever distanced from that culture. She further came to an understanding that Jack was not a very good prospective boyfriend, as he was not advancing in his existence, much like my father, or even worse. Slowly his presence started to even irritate her. The longer Mom stayed in Ukraine, the more she was displeased with what she saw. Grandpa's firm that he was a supervisor of got shut down. The men were unshaven, unkempt, and reeked with drunkenness in every corner of any street in Kiev. They couldn't be compared at the least to the slim and shapely men in Israel. Mom didn't see so much poverty in Israel as much as in Ukraine. The women were provocatively dressed that not even on Israeli beaches had Mom witnessed a woman wearing such short miniskirts. Women there were surprised that Mom wanted to work. They said that they were living on account of men, were giving birth to 10 children, lavishly spending their money, and living just for the fun of life without any ambitions. Mom asked them where they encountered such a sweet life. They answered in the East, places like the United States, they believed. Mom gathered that Ukrainian women and men lived without a conscience. Men drunk, women prostitutes. Everybody was concerned of their materialistic well-being that they didn't want to put effort into earning. Mom started to yearningly appreciate the fact that even though Israel is young in its existence, it is in a much higher level of livelihood and prestige than Ukraine. With these realizations at hand, Mom started meeting Jack and his friends more rarely as she embraced the understanding that she had nothing in common with these people and they had completely different approaches and perspectives to life than her. Mom also accepted the fact that Jack would not be a good fit for a romantic and intimate relationship. Instead, Mom put them all behind and looked forward to her volunteer job in the synagogue. Mom's job description at the synagogue was to help willing ladies to go through a process of giyur, which I talked about in the beginning of my narrative. It is a process that converts you into Judaism. In order to be considered Jewish formally in papers, you have to follow the religion, the works of religion, if you successfully pass the steps in the process. But please understand that it is not by works you are justified, but by faith. Nevertheless, knowing that a man is not justified by the works of the law, but through faith in Christ Jesus, even we have believed in Christ Jesus, so that we may be justified by faith in Christ and not by the works of the law. Since by the works of the law no flesh will be justified. Galatians 2:16. Also, he is a Jew who is one inwardly, and circumcision is that which is of the heart, by the Spirit, not by the letter. And his praise is not from men, but from God. Romans 2:29. Eventually, Mom found that she was awaiting a bigger disappointment. Mom came to the job. The synagogue was located next to a puppet theater. It looked beautiful, majestic, and it had a crystal chandelier in the center. In front of her, Mom was presented with young prostitutes provocatively dressed with flashing makeup. When Mom explained When Mom explained to them that when they were menstruating, by Jewish law, they were not allowed to sleep with their husbands, the girls quizzically asked, "Are we not allowed to sleep only with our husbands? With the rest of the men we are?" Mom understood how far in the Giyul process they would be able to go based on this question, and that the girls were not interested in the religion at all. Rather, they were thinking how to quickly marry and legally immigrate to Israel, which was the whole purpose of the process in the first place. Mom complained to the rabbi of her findings. "Do you really intend to make Goys, Gentiles, into religious Jews?" The rabbi helplessly shrugged with his shoulders, and Mom continued somewhat with a saucy attitude. "They will be true Jews, like I have the potential to be a ballerina." While the synagogue had a Giyul program, it also had a legitimate yeshiva, which literally means a sitting, but it is a school of Bible scholars. It contained solely of Jewish boys, inherently Jewish, who were studying analytically and extensively the wisdoms of the Old Testament, the Torah. Mom eventually found out that those guys maintained sexual relationships with those Gentile prostitutes who were not yet Jewish, and that there was a lot of immorality going on in that synagogue. When my aunt came to visit, she said that she had not witnessed so much hypocrisy anywhere in the world, and my aunt discouraged her from continuing to volunteer there. Convinced, Mom went there only to celebrate the high Jewish holidays. Instead, though, Mom helped my aunt purchase hair for her wig firmly and sent her packages when she left. Still, though, Mom catastrophically had insufficient funds to sustain her, that she eventually started getting angry at herself and questioning herself as to what on earth made her leave sunny Israel with a beautiful 2-story house. Mom thought of returning to Israel, but for that she would have to sell her new apartment that Grandpa helped her obtain. Finally, Mom made a decision that she wouldn't want to leave the country without leaving some kind of memory behind her. Mom gathered the jewelry that she brought from Israel that she had procured from the period when she lived in the old city in Jerusalem and felt that she wanted to sell them. She went to the famous trade center called Andreevskaya, occupied the space there, timidly set up a table that Grandpa had given her with all of the bracelets, rings, and other valuables, and was ready to sell them. Forth came up potential buyers who, in a heightened sense of delightfulness, asked her where she got those beautiful ornaments from. Mother answered that she got them from Israel. Some kind of outsiders overheard her say where she was from, aggressively raided her spot, took her table, and told her to go back to Israel as they forcefully shoved her and her stuff out of her spot. As Mom collected her stuff from the floor that were all ungracefully scattered around, Mom was approached by some lad who protectively screamed at her harassers, helped her collect her belongings, and asked her if she was really from Israel. Now that Mom experienced the real anti-Semitic streaks of the air, she was unsure what the appropriate answer would be, so she dodged the question by asking him back, "What do you want?" "I want to help you," the lad answered in a clear Russian. "How exactly?" Mom asked suspiciously. "You can come up next to my space and trade your stuff beside me. Nobody will hurt you there," the lad reassured her. Mom first examined him frighteningly, but then deemed him harmless, so she did as he said and protected from any snares she was. She later found out that his name was Tolik. Thus, Mom traded every Saturday and Sunday around Tolik's spot, and at some time Tolik announced his predicament that he had nowhere to live. Mom took pity on him with her trustful naivety and let her into her own home. Mom did not plan on any intimate relationship with Tolik, and Tolik was very courteous and tried to accommodate Mom as much as possible. Eventually, however, Mom noticed that he was a heavy drinker, but that shouldn't have been surprising because it was a universal culture to drink, to the point that at times she passed the streets and was completely normal to see disoriented, ambling, prostrate, lying people on the cold ground. In the United States, they would have been stopped and questioned, but in Ukraine, it was a norm. When Mom had to take out the garbage, she asked Tolik to accompany her lest someone drunk would jump on her. At those times, Ukraine was going through a period of time called the Orange Revolution, which was a collection of an unfatigued and relentless political protest from common citizens, causing chaos of all kinds. Mom was desperate for practical solutions. She wanted to go to the United States, but she did not want to live there illegally. But at the same time, she didn't want to return to Israel, which put her at a dilemma. Mom prayed to God that He would give her a sign as to what to do. Shortly after, Grandma advised that she file for the green card lottery again. Mom had already tried 7 times and lost, but on Grandma's insistence, Mom followed her advice to try her destiny again. Eventually, the Orange Revolution ended and they chose Yushchenko as their president. However, there were still throngs of people that were going berserk, drunk all day, and on top of that, anti-Semitism was very much alive. Mom asked Tolik to come with her to file for the green card, and they both entered the rebelling throng. It's very cheap to file for a green card. Mom suggested to Tolik that he should file too, and she gave Grandpa's address, thankfully instead of his relatives, which Mom believes was very wise, as Tolik's relatives would not have cooperated with Mom and they would have most likely hid the fact that he had won. Tolik's relatives were a major impediment for Mom fulfilling her future. In 3 months, Mom was about to lose all hope. Mom was planning to marry Tolik and move back to Israel, as she did develop genuine feelings towards him. But suddenly, Grandpa called Mom and said that Tolik won the green card. Once Tolik's sister found out, she deviously tried to convince Tolik to go for another woman that would pay money to get her out of the country, or that Mom should pay money to them, for which reason Mom started being very worried, even though Mom was taking care of all the details of gathering the paperwork. Tolik's relatives were very greedy and menacing. While feeling greatly threatened by them, Mom told my aunt about her predicament with Tolik's relatives, and my aunt promised to come over and help her. My aunt explained that if the marriage went through successfully, then she would be able to help with the logistics of the documents. If not, then the plan was that Mom would immigrate illegally anyhow. Before the day of the marriage, Tolik disappeared the entire day, and Mom was nervous that he wouldn't come back, fearing that his sister was setting Tolik against her. For this reason, Mom began praying to God that he would come back and she would be able to marry him and immigrate to the U.S., if not for herself but for me, so that she would have a chance to meet with me and relieve my loneliness. Thankfully, Tolik came back very late at night after he was just drinking with his friends. Eventually, Tolik married Mom willingly. To my aunt's credit, she did as promised and came to Mom's wedding, although Mom was afraid that Tolik's relatives would come to the marriage office and try to brainwash him against what he was doing, which did not happen. The very next day, Mom hastily met up with my aunt at a restaurant and gave her the marriage certificate and other pertinent documents needed for Mom's purpose. My aunt said that she was going to hire an attorney since very little time was left, that they would be working together, and that Mom was to listen to everything she was instructing her to do. Again, when my aunt was leaving, Mom and my aunt cried for the separation, and this time Mom only asked for some money and reassurance. As my aunt was with Moisha, my aunt tenderly whispered in Mom's ear that she would do everything to get her out of the damned country, then took the documents and left. In order to be considered for the immigration to the United States, both Tolik and Mom had to go through a medical examination, in which Mom got a set of vaccinations. Mom's immune system was very weak, and she was exposed to chicken pox, constantly itching and being uncomfortable. After that went well, my aunt instructed Mom that she had to get police clearance. Once she received that, the next step was to go to Poland to pass the interview and receive an official green card. They drove together to Poland, turned in all of the relevant documents, and were asked questions while together, as they had a translator. In order for me to have been included in the receiving of the green card with Mom, I had to show up to Poland as well, but my family did not want to risk the possibility of not being able to return if things had not followed its due course, so I wasn't included in the receiving of the green card. I was still living undocumented in the United States. After they interviewed together, they had to go through another interview separately. While Tolik was interviewed, Mom was waiting, and she saw a lady who waited beside her, who explained to Mom as they struck up a conversation that she had paid to marry the person that was going through the interview and that she wasn't well acquainted with them. Mom remembered how Tolik's sister wanted to do the same thing. Mom lived with Tolik for 3 years, knew his disadvantages and his habits, and her marriage made her more sense. Eventually, when they summoned Mom, she was asked questions such as where they met, where they worked, and so on. Thankfully, they passed the interview, and the lady that was sitting next to Mom didn't pass it. The only concerning problem was that the American embassy was ready to give Tolik his green card, but not yet to Mom because she didn't have police clearance from Israel. Mom was nervous again, and my aunt urged her to immediately go to the Israeli consulate and procure that document. Mom immediately went, requested the clearance, and called them every day to make sure that they sent it to Poland. In 2 weeks, the American embassy finally received the clearance and said that only one of them had to go to Poland to get a stamp on Mother's passport. Although Mom was very edgy about it, she sent Tolik to do the job because it was quite toilsome for her, and despite the many worries and doubts, Tolik came back with a stamp. Mom and Tolik each had their passport, and they were getting ready to immigrate to the United States. Mom bought the tickets, and before leaving, Mom gathered all the clothes and stuff that she didn't need, wanting to give them to Grandpa. Instead, Tolik brought over his sister, who barged into Mom's apartment and demanded all the stuff for herself as she pushed herself into Mom's apartment without Mom's consent. Tolik did not intervene. Mom was dumbfounded at the nerve. The problem was that Tolik's sister assuredly believed that Mom had to pay them for Tolik taking her out of the country, and she felt entitled to Mom's possessions. Mom hysterically called Grandpa, and Grandpa asked that she would allow her to take everything she wanted and said that the most important thing that Mom needed to focus on was to get to the United States. My aunt gave Mom the option that as soon as Mom would get to the airport, she would be able to leave Tolik, but Mom hoped for a better future with him, and despite the fact that he had pledged loyalty to his sister at times, Mom did not want to return him the wrong that he did to her. When Mom arrived to the United States on October 10th, 2006, with my new stepfather, Mom saw me after 3 years of separation. In 3 years, I had changed 3 households and very much resented the kind of lifestyle that Mom had brought to my exposure. Mom complains that I gave her the cold shoulder, did not greet her with excitement and as heartwarmingly as she would have expected. She was deeply disappointed and hurt by my attitude towards her. Mom believed that her coming would relieve my loneliness and my sense of abandonment, but the problem was that I still did not completely get over the fact that she had lied to me, at which point I greatly distrusted her. However, hearing how Mother was affected by that brings tears to my eyes now.